What we most look forward to tonight, though, is hearing from our two special guests. Our first is a man who played 7 test matches for Lebanon, 7 test matches for Australia, 173 games in the National Rugby League. Please welcome 3-time Origin representative Josh Mansour. Next up, I know he was very keen to get up here. It was a little scoot out of dummy half from Mick Ennis, who played, no, I won't run through all the clubs again, 8 games for New South Wales, a 2-time Dally M Hooker of the Year, 274 NRL games, and a premiership with the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks in 2016. Welcome, welcome. First of all, with you, Mick, this setup for State of Origin, we might talk about the game that's to come first, and then we might hear about your experiences at State of Origin level. It's perfect, isn't it? Like, it's not only a promoter's dream, there's incredible storylines running through from Queensland's point of view, and New South Wales are heavy favourites at home. What's your take on Game 3 in 6 days' time?
Oh, it's fascinating. I mean, I think everyone just, looked at, obviously, the side that we put together for Game 1, and whilst we probably didn't, execute, and often Game 1, Josh should know that, it can be scrappy at times, new combinations, and it's completely differently, like it's policed differently, to your regular competition.
Any Ashley Klein fans in the room? No, I didn't think so.
And I think that's what makes the spectacle great as well. It is brutal, and obviously the result in Game 1 up there was phenomenal for us to be able to go to Suncorp and get that done. And then I think everyone thought, well, we'd go to Perth, and our form in Perth had been great in recent times. Second game, cohesion, and obviously losing Mitch Moses, but bringing in Jerome Luai, who's got an incredible combination with Nathan. You think, well, we won't miss a beat, but then, I think obviously the 8-0 penalty count at halftime definitely, it hurt us, but at the same time, our discipline and our errors need to improve, and the players have certainly owned that, and get an opportunity back at home now in front of our faithful and our people, and it's an enormous opportunity for us, and it's a great moment, I think, for our state to get behind us and really make a statement with the side that we've got. They've gone out and Billy's taken some chances, taken some risk. He's had some success with that at times, but will he get it this time when you're rolling some of those guys into that arena for their first time or their first time in certain key positions under the blowtorch of Origin in New South Wales. So, it sets it up perfectly, Jim.
What about you, Josh? I can see you nodding at different stages there. What were you agreeing with? What are the other things, the additions that you'd like to make to what Mick said?
Well, I thought the only thing that was going to cost us in Game 2 was complacency, and that first half pretty much summed it up. Talk about a game of 2 halves. You're not going to win a game again when you're 10-2 on the penalty count. Like, that's pretty obvious there, but we almost created the most incredible comeback win ever in Origin history, which was something special. And when you think about it, we scored more tries. Again, the conversions is what let us down. It's interesting to see, will they stick with Zach Lomax or Nathan with the kicking duties? Not too sure. If it was me personally, I'd probably go like a Latrell Mitchell or Crichton. I think they're kicking out a pretty high percentage at the moment. I think there's a bit of head noise around Zach Lomax, and Nathan's obviously got that groin strain, so hopefully we don't have that same issue in Game 3. But saying that, I still think we've got the formula to upset Queensland. I was, myself, with a lot of people, were overconfident coming into Game 2. But unfortunately, we got dusted, but hopefully there's revenge on the cards and a bit of redemption for Game 3.
You were there when Nathan started his career at the...
I was his first roomie.
Is it? Wow.
Believe it or not.
So
Lucky he didn't get corrupted.
18-year-old in Melbourne, right? He played his first game against the Melbourne Storm. Tell us about what you saw then in the 18-year-old that you now recognise as, these are the attributes that make him the great player that he is.
The only difference I see is just physically, obviously more experience. He's always been a student of the game, and he's a guy that just leaves no stone unturned. He constantly watches himself, video, even after losses. And you can obviously, Mick, your experience.
Right, with all the Manly losses this year, yeah. Is that what you said?
He said it all day. But it's always very difficult to watch yourself after a loss. But you have to do it because, end of the day, when you're watching those games, you learn off your mistakes, right? But yeah, Nathan's just a true professional. Gym, physio. I can name a dozen times, or more than 100 times, I should say, of examples where he just constantly just dialed in, and it's good to see.
Hey Mick, we might just pull your chair back so that we open
Gotcha,
it up
mate.
for the
Yeah, I
rest
was
of the room.
was waiting to have a
Oh,
look at the
yeah.
menu.
What is on the menu?
Yeah, hey,
What is
you'll
on the
be
menu,
up there
Mick?
soon. You'll be very shortly. You'll ask
beef
for your
rissoles.
your beef rissoles.
Salivating.
What do you call these stuff? Rissoles, fantastic. There's the great story about Nathan Cleary when they were on the Kangaroo Tour and Mal Meninga throwdown from 12 to 1 on a Thursday. Thanks for listening. And Mal talks about on the Kangaroo Tour of 2022, where in the end they said, we're going to get on the bus and go back to the hotel. Nathan, you get an Uber back to the hotel, because he would stay there and goal practice.
Kick, yeah.
Just kicking and kicking and kicking. He's obsessive about his preparation. Mick, take us inside an Origin arena. You were there 8 times. Tell us about, there's for people here that there's NRL and that's an elite level, but that extra step that's required to become a state of origin player.
There's nothing like it, Jim. I was a young kid that grew up in Newcastle, which was Heartland Rugby League back then. If you weren't playing footy on weekends, there was something wrong with you. And I was the kid that used to sit in front of the little bar heater with my brother and my mum and dad, and we'd watch Origin, and you'd come home from school. Origin night was on, and then it was just be in front of the TV by 7 o'clock, and it meant a lot to us as a family. But at the same time, there was always that glimmer of hope or ambition inside that you just think, boy, wonder what that really feels like. And then as time progressed, and obviously you dream of just playing NRL, and then you get the opportunity, as you guys know, that just becomes such an incredible experience, and then all of a sudden you start to develop at that level. And then I don't know if you remember, but back when the sides were getting announced for a period of time for Origin, they were announced at halftime on a Monday night on Fox League, Monday night footy. And so we were playing, I was playing for the Bulldogs at the time. We were playing against Manly at Brookvale Oval, and I remember on the bus on the way to the ground, New South Wales had lost their opening 2 games, and there was talk of myself and Brett Camorley getting called into the New South Wales side. And there's always this, surely he knows by now. Surely they know by now. It's like it's Monday. Anyway, I'd heard crickets, and I was thinking, I've bloody missed it again, and
Was that Bellamy?
Craig Bellamy coaching at the time. And anyway, coming up, the race at Brookvale Oval at half time, Bulldogs fans leaning over the cage, the cage tunnel, and just saying, Ennis, you've made it. You're in the New South Wales. That's how I found out I was playing Origin.
Wow.
And so the coach's speech at half time I've still heard none of. Then I get onto the field and I tackle on guys like Glenn Stewart and Anthony Watnall. My boys, just take it easy. I was in a dinner suit for 40 minutes. I didn't get touched. And then prior to that, 2 weeks beforehand, it was an enormous rivalry between the Dogs and Parramatta. And that was when Nathan Hindmarsh and I had a set to. Had a little bit of a run-in. And anyway, I'm thinking, how good's this? Origin camp. I had 2 kids at the time. Wife drops me off at the hotel. Life's never been better. Get my card, go up to my room, scan the door card, off we go, bang. Next thing, the door opens again. It's Nathan Hindmarsh.
Is that true story?
True story.
And what was it? Give us your first exchange there with Nathan.
No, we actually got along great. We had a great time. But I must say, I rang my wife about 20 minutes after that, and she was driving home, and I said, "Fuck, you wouldn't believe who I'm rooming with." And she said, "Who?" I said, "Nathan Hindmarsh." She goes, "Are you kidding?" Boy, he did a job on the minibar. Holy dooly.
The mint slices, I think. The mint slices.
Jimmy, the moment where Craig Bellamy holds you and locks eyes with you, and talks about what it means to the state, and you look around in that huddle, and then all of a sudden the doors open. It was at Suncorp. They were going for a whitewash, and everyone had spoken about playing at Suncorp, the Cauldron, and what it's like to play Origin there, and you'll never experience anything like it, so brace yourself. Craig leaves us, in the bowels of Suncorp. The doors open, the Channel 9 cameras are there, and it's a short run out of the tunnel at Suncorp onto the field. And by the time we go to come round the corner to go down the tunnel, the noise just seeps through your soul. It just hits you in the face. And you're just filled with emotion. And then all of a sudden you stand there and you're wearing this jersey that you've dreamed of for years. And it just means so much to you. And there's so many people that have given up so much time and sacrifice to get you in that position. And then you stand there, linked arms. You know, I was with Josh Morris and Brett Kamali, who I was playing with at Canterbury. That meant so much to me because it's those guys that also play such a role in you getting to that position. But then you see your mum and you see your wife and you see your kids and your brother, and it becomes highly emotional, that first moment when the national anthem comes on, and then it's on. Then it's on for, it was, I remember playing against Corey Parker, who's my best mate at my wedding, and it was just no holds bar for 80 minutes. So we went toe to toe, and then I thought afterwards, I sort of looked at him, I was like, far out. What was that? Like that was, it was awesome. I actually hit him square on the jaw with a swinging arm, and then actually after the game I rang him. I said, mate, I was more worried about your mum and dad are looking at me now compared.
You didn't get suspended, did you?
No, not in Origin.
No, exactly. So you wouldn't have it in Origin.
Need a bit more of that these days, I reckon.
What's that?
A bit more head contact these days, a bit of rub in the face, elbow their head, but again, that
Mate,
anymore.
that was right in your game too, wasn't it, Mansour? What about you? Like Mick's taking us there. You played all 3 games in 2016. Tell us about your Origin experiences.
My
Josh.
experience. So we were playing the Titans out in Penrith on the Sunday, and I didn't think anything of it. Early in the year, I should say, I did catch up with Matty Parrish and Loz, and they're just telling me, they're taking me through the defensive systems and attack, and just explaining to me what Origin's about. But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to get my hopes up, and it was around April at the time, and anyway, I just kind of put it in the back burner. I forgot all about it. And then I'm driving on the highway, and it's actually funny enough because I got told I was making my debut on the same highway, and believe it or not. And it was my football manager, and he called me and he was like, get your things ready. You're going into camp tomorrow. You've made the Origin side. And I was just like what Mick said. Like, you just reflect on all the hard work, the sacrifice, just the foresight. You just put it, it's always in the front of your mind. And to actually achieve something that you've always dreamt of, it didn't feel real. I pulled over to the side of the road and I called my mum firstly, then my dad, and it was just such an emotional conversation. I'll never ever forget it. They broke down in tears, and it's just playing Origin. It's just a feeling you just can't describe. It raises all the hairs on the back of your neck. I'll never ever forget running out for my first game, and you're going through the Accor Stadium tunnel. And it's very dark. It's only got the blue lights, and then once you just step in that last 10 meters, it just lights up. You look from the first row to the top, and it's just filled with blue fans cheering. And I just remember I just ran out there, just closing my eyes, just soaking it all in. And similar to Mick, that feeling when you're singing the national anthem, like emotion just took over me. Like I just had all this rush of memories to actually get me to that one point. And then when I looked in the stands, and the first person I saw was my mum and my family, and I actually just broke down. It just got me a beauty. But yeah, I had a bit of a larrikin roomie as well. I had J-Moz first. Okay, he's straight arrow. And then the other room, I opened the door. It was Blake Ferguson. I was like, fuck. Oh, like, here we go. But yeah, he was a colourful character. He's one of a kind, Fergie.
How about the footy though? Like what you both described is leading up to the start of the 80 minutes. What about the actual footy itself? Because you had played at the elite level, you'd played at the international level, and played at obviously the NRL level for a long time. But what about the actual footy itself, Josh?
Probably the most intense,
physical.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry, buddy. Oh, I thought it was blowing over. There was a bad omen. There was a bad omen there. We're on the menu.
Where were we?
The 80 minutes of footy.
Yes, of course. That's probably the hardest, most physical, intense, emotionally draining thing you could ever possibly do in your life. By far.
Is there any preparation for it? Like once you've been, and you were there 8 times, Mick, but once you've been there once, can you go, right, I need to do this to prepare more for
I don't know if you can ever be conditioned for an Origin game. Like, yeah, you probably get more experience as you go, but every single game, it's like playing a grand final intensity. It's just full on. Everyone's out there. Like, I remember taking my first yardage carry, and it was just shoulder to shoulder. I was running into a brick wall. but you know what? I used to love doing that, so it wasn't too much of a problem. But saying that, yeah, it was just so physically taxing on your body. I'll never forget. I think I slipped a disc in my neck, and I had to play on with it, and my whole left arm went dead. But you just got to get on with it. Like we all think about when I think Josh Morris made that try-saving tackle on Inglis when he did he tear his hamstring, I think, or did his knee?
Knee.
And that's what Origin's all about.
There's a great story about Graham Mackay, who's the big winger who was playing for the Penrith Panthers at the time, I think, and he dislocated his finger in an Origin game, and they said, well, we can't really fix it. And he said, cut it off. It's he said. He said, cut it off. And they went, oh, hang on, we can't cut it off. We're not going to do that. So they taped it up. But that's what he was prepared to do, to go back into an Origin game. 8 games at Origin level, Mick. Do you ever feel comfortable? Do you ever at the point where you go, okay, now I'm believing I should be here?
No, I think you just get more comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's the best way to describe it. You're playing against the best decision makers, the most elite, hardened, conditioned stars right in the middle of a footy season when they're at their absolute peak fitness. And so, the great Queensland side, you were just on high alert. You had Cameron Smith, coming out around the ruck, constantly asking questions of you. Then you'd be in the tackle. Then you'd be looking and thirsting. It'd be eyeballing you, waiting to see if you were fatigued. And then he'd want to take you on. Then you'd have Lockyer sitting on the ruck. Slater would be starting to swing from side to side. And it's just like it's constantly draining. And you just get taken to a place of being completely uncomfortable. And you just have to keep challenging yourself, and the mental battle to be able to push through for what's at stake is, I think where, you really find, your true self out there. Yeah.
I was going to say as well, there's no hiding when you play in Origin. Definitely no. And on the wing, you can probably hide sometimes and cheat a bit, but I just remember I'm obviously on the end of the line there, and I'll be looking infield, and I can see Cooper Cronk, Thurston, even Slater at times, and they'll just be eyeballing me, but just kind of side-eyeing me, just see what I'm doing. I'm like, fucking hell, relax. But mate, they're just constantly checking to see what your body position is like and keeping you honest. And yeah, that was one thing I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Give us an understanding, Mick, about what it meant. So I remember playing with Adrian Lamb, and Adrian Lamb, controversially was selected to play for Queensland, from Port Moresby. But anyway, that's a separate story. Exactly. Well done, sir. But he came back to NRL and he was a different player. He just carried himself differently because he had this knowledge that he could compete at that level. Tell us about the impact playing Origin had on your NRL footy.
Yeah, well, I think you become, really ingrained in a certain routine, prior to playing Origin. Then all of a sudden you're exposed to the levels of, the game's greats and how they prepare. So you certainly take lessons and you're constantly learning and watching, in your first couple of Origins around how some of those players prepare. But then it's also the intensity and the accountability, I think, which makes those players who they are. And so that the sessions are at a complete different intensity. There's a different expectation of that, which then you, as I said before, become more comfortable in that space. That's the level. If you always talk about Origin players going back to their club level and performing and actually taking their club side, into final series and hopefully into grand finals and having that impact on the other players around you. And so I think those lessons are great early on. The intensity's definitely something that you take back to your club level, and the accountability. I think the ability to be able to challenge each other and ask more of each other is definitely something that you can also take back to your club as well, for sure.
Yeah, it's more about respecting as well. Especially after you play Origin, you want to kind of give back to your club teammates, because at the end of the day, without them pushing you, train with them every single day, and obviously helping you get the form to earn your Origin jumper. For me, it was never a burden, especially if we played on Wednesday night and I had to back up on a Friday. I'll be so sore, in agony, but I always put my teammates first, and that was always a higher purpose for me. And but at the end of the day, it's always about giving back, like you said, Mick, being honest with yourself, being accountable. I just think when you do play Origin and you play at a test level, the expectation of you performing for your club week in, week out just goes to another level. But I love that. I relish that, to be totally honest.
Had the great privilege over the years to work with a guy named Stuart Clark, who's a former Australian fast bowler, played 24 Test matches for Australia, had an outstanding career. But he talks about the fact there's Test cricketers and then there's Test cricketers, right? He says I was a Test cricketer, but Ricky Ponting is. Who were the guys at Origin level that you either played with or played against that you just go, wow, what they've done at that level?
Where do you start?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that Queensland side that we played against was phenomenal.
That was a cheat.
I think Cameron, I always, we had a great rivalry, but deep below, I had great respect for him. I think just his feel for big moments, like, it could be a subtle kick on tackle 3 when they were wedged inside their half, and then all of a sudden it'd sail, between the winger and fullback, and then all of a sudden you're back on your, 10, 20 metre line, and they're, as Josh said, they're shoulder to shoulder and getting stuck into you, and all of a sudden the momentum just swings. I loved, obviously playing with Paul Gallen. Gal was he was a real actions leader. It wasn't always about what he said, it was what he did. And I got a great appreciation in a small dose at Origin level of what it was like to play with Gal and just where he was willing to take himself for his teammates. And then to be able to do that, weekly with him at the back end of my career at club level, the trust that he gave me as a teammate, when we got into that final set on grand final night, I went to him because I just could trust him, and I just relied. I knew that he was reliable. Darren Lockyer was another. Darren Lockyer was one that was the harder the game became, the tighter the game became, the more he thrived in that space. He was just so calm, but underneath there was just this ferocious competitor. And I think the fact that I was able to play with him at Brisbane for a short period of time, I just knew that aura that he brought to the dressing room, and you were never beaten. And that was always your fear. Whenever you were ahead, if you were ever ahead in that New South Wales side in periods of game and you knew Lockie was on the other side, you were just never comfortable, because he was always scheming and always searching and always looking for ways to find you. And he had this incredible ability to find a vulnerability in an opposition defensive line. He was special. Greg Bird was another.
I was going to say that.
I loved playing with Greg Bird.
Yeah.
Especially at Origin level. Yeah, he was just a winner. And the bigger the game, very similar to what everyone's talks about Cameron Munster at the moment, being that big game player and thriving in that sort of brutal space of Origin, just that traditional Origin. Well, Birdie was that. Yeah, he loved it. If they wanted to mix at Queensland, he was get out of the way.
He was State of Origin playing 5'8", man of the match for New South Wales, Greg Bird. What about for you, Josh?
Similar. Greg Bird never took a backward step. Same with Gallen as well. I remember coming into camp and just whenever he spoke, he had the whole room just eyes gazed at him. Like everyone just listened to every single word he said. Teddy as well. I want to throw Teddy in there. Just his knack for his ability to just break through tackles, never give up, never lay down, to get through so much workload and just consistently be safe at the back. I really appreciate that about him. But if I want to go on the other side of the fence, I got a taste, obviously, playing for the Kangaroos with these guys. Billy Slater, again, just a student. Yes, he's just naturally gifted, talent, born with it. But again, he's just a student of the game, just constantly watching review, video, sitting down with him as well, but back three, just kind of not having designated meetings, but just creating our own meetings and getting together and just learning about the game and coming up with game plans of what we're going to come with the following week. But GI was probably one guy I remember coming into grade in my first couple of years at Souths, and he was the one that I was like, wow, that's like I was starstruck when I saw GI. The stuff he could use with the footy, it was just unbelievable. Fullback, centre, 5'8", just naturally gifted as well. Man, I would love to see him and Latrell just go at it, just at their peak. Oh my God, what I'll pay for that. But yeah, those guys come to mind.
Luke Lewis was another. Luke Lewis was an Origin player.
I've heard you talk about Luke Lewis and the impact that he can have on a game in a short space of time.
Luke Lewis was the best player I ever played with.
Wow.
Luke Lewis could play multiple positions on a footy field and be absolutely elite at those. Luke obviously won a grand final at 18, 19 years of age on the wing. He played centre for Origin. He played back row. He played lock. He's played in the halves. But Luke just had this incredible mental resilience that you could ask him to do anything. And as a decision maker, to have that reliability of someone that if you're seeing something and you're relying on their complete trust to run into that space for you, to be able to put a pass into a position that's really uncomfortable for them. Luke would do that. Luke would had no respect at times for his body, but would do whatever it took for his teammates. And I got an understanding. I remember Tim Sheen's talking about him one day, and Tim always said he was one of the first blokes he ever picked in his Australian side. Wow. For the reasons that he could bring to a footy side. He could play multiple positions, and whatever position he played in, he was elite at. His game knowledge was phenomenal. But what went unnoticed was his resilience and his toughness and his willingness to put his body in a position for a teammate. And as a decision maker, as a ball player, that's you don't find that a lot. Yeah.
He actually set me up for my first NRL try.
Luke Lewis. Try
did.
assist.
Yeah,
there we go. How good. You think about what his value would be now with his utility value.
Unbelievable.
What he can do. Just a couple on. So Billy Slater, Matt Ballon had one Origin game. Cameron Smith missed one in 43. So played 42 Origins. Cameron missed one. Matt Ballon was the hooker, and I asked him one time. I said, Matty, what was the thing you noticed? He said, how much Billy Slater talks.
Yeah.
He said Billy Slater never stopped communicating to him when he was at dummy half. Wingers up, they're back on the left. Okay, now he's dropped back on the right. Okay, there's space down the left, Never stopped talking. He said that was part of the underappreciated thing that Billy Slater did. And the other one was Darren Lockyer. You mentioned Darren Lockyer. Brent Tate tells a great story about Darren Lockyer. 2006, I think he, Petro, might have been Steve Price. Mal Meninga's first year as coach, and he pulled them in and said, "We don't win this, you guys, you're out, right? We're got to regenerate here for Queensland." Game 3, down by 8 points at the MCG, and they're in the in-goal area. There's about 7 minutes remaining, and Darren Lockyer just says to the Queensland side, "You guys do your job, you get me the ball, and I'll win us the game." So his career's on the line. Anything. Next minute he gives a try assist to Brent Tate, and then they're within 2, and then the next minute there's a bad pass out of dummy half. Who swoops on it to score the try? Darren Lockyer saves his State of Origin career, and Queensland win 8 straight.
We should have won that game. Should have won.
There's so many. Why is that the case? There's so many games that New South Wales should have, could have won, but they don't, Mick.
They will on Wednesday, Jim.
Right. Good chat. Good chat.
Yeah.
Why?
I think at the moment, like it's an opportunity, and I'm really comfortable in saying this. I think Nathan, there's a lot of question marks for whatever reason around Nathan not dominating Origin. I look at Nathan, the game that he dished up in Perth a couple of years ago. He had 2 try assists and scored 2 tries, was phenomenal. And I just think Nathan's about to, I wouldn't say go to another level, but I think Nathan's about to really grab this Origin series by the scruff of the neck. I love our outside backs at the moment. I think Latrell will have a big night. Stephen Crichton, Brian Tyler's been phenomenal throughout this. But again, if Brian's not fit, there's question marks around his knee. I love what Jake Carraz has been able to deliver, and I think he's dying for an opportunity. And Josh spoke about when he got his. Sometimes you just have to wait and be patient. It doesn't matter how well you're playing, you just got to wait for your chance. And I feel like in that Bulldog system, he's ready to take that chance. Payne's elite up front, obviously. I love what Robson's done out of dummy half. I just think he's an absolute warrior. He's the type of bloke that I would have loved to have played alongside. Liam Martin's another. Liam Martin's got that Greg Bird about him. I think, Origin rolls around, whether it's been Freddie, whether it's been Madge, whether it's Laurie. I just think in February they go, "Oh, Liam Martin." Liam Martin. It's just how it works.
And if they didn't, his teammates would blow up.
That's exactly right. I'm really comfortable that Wednesday will be a special night for our state.
You share the same.
Totally agree.
you share the same level of
I totally
confidence?
agree. Like I even early crowed it and I said we're going to sweep them, but you know what? We're here now. It's probably what galvanised Queensland to beat us. But anyway, yeah, I just agreeing with Mick. I just feel like we've got a far superior team. I feel like we play at a higher intensity than the Queenslanders. And don't get me wrong, whenever you play Origin, everyone deserves to be there. Everyone competes to the final minute, 100%. But when you look at the team from 1 to 17, I feel like Laurie Daly's got a beautiful team on his hand that can create a dynasty. I truly believe that.
I will say, Jim, the loss of Barnett has
yeah.
been significant. The loss of Mitch Barnett, not only for New South Wales, but I think you'll see at the back end of the season for the Warriors. His unassuming toughness and what we just spoke about, Origin style of players and what they're willing to put their bodies through for their teammates and for their state and for their families, he's every bit of that. He's every bit of that. And I thought his work in game one was, he complemented our forwards, in particular Payne, exceptionally well.
Yeah, a lot of Payne, yeah.
And, you know, there was a lot of discussion around the loss of Moses' kicking game, and it is. Like, Moses' kicking game is hard to replace.
Even on the left, though? Even on the left?
Particularly in an Origin. Like Jerome's got a good kick on him, but he just doesn't have the height and length.
Yeah.
And Mitch, like Matt Burton, you know, when you watch the Dogs, there's so much transition in Origin, and so often you're getting caught inside that 30 to 40 metre zone. And you can turn an average set into a great set on the back of what Nathan and Mitch can do. But Barnett, to me, is that's the one area that leaves me a little uncomfortable, not having Barnett in the side.
Yeah, if it didn't cost us game two, it was more of a technical thing, especially around the kicking. First kick of the game, out on a full from Jerome Luai. Nathan didn't kick a ball all game. Latrell was slotting in as well, taking the yardage kicks. So our fourth and fifth tackle sets were a bit out of whack. Obviously, the first half, the penalty count, the discipline, we need to fix that without 100%. If we can fix those two areas, I think it goes a long way in winning the game. And also, if you recall, it was pissing down rain. And our timing was just off. Queensland were just rushing out of the line recklessly and just jamming and shooting at the back. And New South Wales just didn't know how to handle it. We're just forcing passes where they weren't on. They weren't coming off, unfortunately. And then, yeah, I think we're going to run right this game.
Incredibly, they were never offside when they were charging off the line.
They were that perfect. They were that perfect.
They were perfect. Yeah, Mitch Barnett's played 2 Origin games, both at Suncorp Stadium. He's won them both, which is that's pretty incredible. If Queensland were to win, let's just, hypothetically, who is player of the match?
Munster.
Josh? Munster. Is Munster the one you fear, Mick?
Grant's the one I fear. Yeah, I think. I don't disagree. Munster's extremely dangerous. Harry Grant, I thought he responded really well. I thought he was poor for his standard in game one. I felt like he overplayed it. And I thought early on when he kicked for Coates out of dummy half, when he had Cherry Evans and Munster there to use, unless it was a set play, to me it was a rush of blood and him trying to contribute early to get a play to get himself into the game, which can happen. It can happen. But then I felt like he just kept chasing to try and find moments to get himself back into some rhythm, and essentially it disjointed their attack. And obviously they made some change with Dearden coming in.
Big call.
Which was a big call. But I just think Grant, slippery surface, ANZ Stadium, or Accor Stadium, I think we'll see Harry Grant run the footy a lot. I really do.
Do you reckon their forwards will lay the platform, though, for him to actually run the footy?
I think he's one dummy half in the competition that doesn't necessarily all the time have to have momentum to run off the back of. I think he can at times generate his own momentum.
Yep.
Got to be somewhere, Jim? Mate. Sorry, he's just ordered it on the menu. He's just ordered. What's that? Schnitzel.
Home soon, honey. Home soon, honey. Ennis still talking.